episode 369.
If you talk to a technician in terms of dollars, they understand what you're saying, but that's not their language. Technicians want to know how many hours per ticket. How many hours did you sell on this car? So we try to keep it simple and think of terms of hours on the board.
Welcome, aftermarketers, to Remarkable Results Radio. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results. Hello, Carm Capriato here, and welcome to Remarkable Results Radio with a second visit with Patrick McHugh, owner of Bimmer Rescue, Richmond, Virginia. This episode is very interesting as we discuss Patrick's Scoreboard. This episode is supported by Federal Mogul Motor Parts and Garage Gurus. For serious technical training and support, online, on-site, and on demand, Garage Gurus is everything you need to know. Find out more at fmgaragegurus.com. Hey, reading is something many of us cannot find the time to do. However, I strongly suggest to carve out some time and read a good business or leadership book. To help you narrow down your choices, I created a books page on the website. Now, these are books that your fellow industry colleagues have read and discussed on the podcast. Find the books page on the menu bar or at remarkableresults.biz/books. Hey, are you in touch with our Remarkable community? Well, get inside our ecosystem at remarkableresults.biz/social. And here's a shout out to new Facebook friends, Jose Luis Gonzalez, Robert Music, and Paul Henderson, and new LinkedIn connections, Steve Gibson and Paul Marquardt. Now, meet shop owner Patrick McHugh from Bimmer Rescue in Richmond, Virginia, for his sophomore appearance on our show. Patrick's first episode here was episode 266, and he also contributed to Town Hall Academies. Please catch the Academy on Pivots that included Patrick. It was great. In this episode, Patrick shows us an interesting way of tracking progress and goals in his shop with his new scoreboard. It actually came from a discussion back in episode 266 that he had with his techs and his disciplines as a former pilot. The board is located in the bays of his shop and has sections for workflow and numbers. The scoreboard is meant to be in technician speak. It has a grid that flows from top to bottom with customer, name, car, incoming work, in diagnostics, ready for work, and more. This entire system came from the drive to engage his technicians and ultimately provide stronger earnings for his team. Patrick talks about a quick way to see holdups and to improve communications between the sales counter, office, and the back shop. He also talks about a feedback loop using the logic of a PID controller, like cruise control for the shop. Find the talking points for this episode with Patrick McHugh at remarkableresults.biz/E369. So glad you've joined us to improve your own success pathway using these long-form audio interviews from the Aftermarket's premier podcast. Hey, warm welcome to Patrick McHugh from Bimmer Rescue in Richmond, Virginia for, I think, your third, fourth, fifth, or maybe fifth time.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. I'm so happy. You've been a great contributor to the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. I recall that you and I got together in episode 266 one-on-one, and that's where I learned all about this great scoreboard.
Yep.
And then you came on with us and did episode 73 of the Town Hall Academy. We talked about important business and life pivots. You were exceptional, very transparent.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, thanks for that. And of course, you came on and you talked about, we had part 1 and 2 about your ideal customer. Yep. So thanks for being such a great contributor. And you and I was fascinated by the scoreboard. And I was also always fascinated for the fact that you were a pilot and, you had to have all these disciplines in order to get the plane up and the plane down.
Yep.
And how you transcended them into your business. So I really encourage everyone to go back and listen to 266 when Patrick was really challenged by one of his technicians who wanted to earn more money. And Patrick said, hey, let's think this thing through. And together you built a collaboration where you basically said, hey, look it, you guys, you need a whiteboard or something? Is that what it was about?
So yeah, one of the guys came to me and said, I want to make some more money. What's it going to take? And we started to innovate. We started to figure out, all right, what do we have to do? I want you to make more money because, in the end, I'll make more as well, and we'll work on more cars, and more people will be helped, and it's just a perfect storm. I want that. He said, I want a whiteboard to track performance numbers on. And I said, how big? He said, as big as you can get. So we bought an 8-foot long whiteboard, and we call it the board, but we also call it kind of the cockpit. It's like the cockpit of an airplane. And we moved our dispatch systems, a unique dispatch system that we developed as well, that we moved over to this board. And we basically created a scoreboard in the shop. It's in the back of the shop. You don't want to put it like up in the front or anything. It's huge. We put it on the back wall where everybody can see it at any time. And the scoreboard has been a huge change for our business. It's changed a lot of things. I like to look at it this way. If you go to any sporting event, basketball, football, even like racing, what's the biggest thing out there in the field next to the field itself? It is the scoreboard. And, what would a sport be like without the score? What would it be like watching football on your TV if there was no score and you walked away for a minute and you came back and you had no idea what just happened or who just scored or who is behind? Why would we run a business without that in the business as well?
Who's the better team? Who's executing better?
Right.
Exactly. Because when you do that stuff, you win.
Exactly. And it's huge. And it kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. Like, why don't I have this in my shop? Why doesn't every shop have this in their shop? Why can't every person in the business, whether it be a service advisor, technician, even a helper guy, or the owner, know at any moment how we're doing today, how we're doing this week, how we're doing this month? They're all a part of it, and they deserve to know. And it can change the whole dynamic and feel of the shop. I remember before, we would have moments where I'd come in and I'd feel like we're doing good, and then talk to one of my techs, and he's like, "Yeah, we're slow." And it was always, a shock to me. I thought we were doing good, but he says we're slow. Where's that disconnect? Why?
Wait a minute. It's a single man's perspective.
Exactly. And this makes it a collaborative thing, which I love. I love it. It's really changed things a lot. I look calm on the outside all the time, most of the time. But inside me, I have anxieties sometimes.
But where's this fear or anxiety coming from?
There's always, running a business has all kinds of anxieties and fears that come with it. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing. Me as the captain of this ship, it makes me constantly concerned and constantly checking, double checking, making sure that we're going in the right direction, making sure that this and that is correct, making sure the payroll is correct. It's a good thing for the leader to have that stuff. I keep it bottled up inside me. This board has allowed me to know that I can take a breath. It's allowed me to know that we have 30 hours of work sold today, and that we're a little bit ahead of the curve this month. Or on vice versa, we're a little bit behind and I need to do X, Y, Z to catch back up again. It's really helped me to calm some of my fears.
Patrick, is this in lieu of software that is available out there? You would rather see the visual for the entire team to see? This is a little bit manual.
It is kind of manual. There isn't software that really does it this way that I've seen yet out there. There's software that does little pieces of this but there's nothing like being able to look over at the wall and see it visually. But I'd love for this to be a digital thing someday. I'd love for this to be a giant touch screen on the wall, and you can grab and move tiles around. So let me explain a little bit about how, like, the physical board and how it's set up.
Great.
So when I was in flight training, we went and toured a air traffic control center. I got to see how a control tower in an airport worked. I've talked to those guys on the radio all the time, but I never really knew what they were doing up there. And in their control tower, they have incoming planes coming in, and they write the tail numbers on these little tiles with like a grease pen, and they stack them in order of who's coming in. And then they've got planes that are on the ground that have landed, and they stack those in order of priority. And then they have planes that are departing the area, and they stack those in order of priority. And when they move off this board, they get handed off to a control center that manages them in flight. So there's these tiles, and I've always wanted to do something with those tiles. So we bought little name tags, little white name tags that stick on with a magnet. And these name tags are perfect because you can dry erase on them. So we write the customer's last name and the vehicle type, and they move through our board as follows. They start in dispatch. So they go to the incoming work. And once the car is written up outside, all the customer's concerns are written down. The customer has been sent off in a loaner car. We create a tile and we put it in the incoming work. section of the whiteboard. And then the guys know, and once again, there's a little anxiety reducer. Our techs know when they see 7 cards there, that there are 7 cars sitting outside waiting for them. So right there, it's almost an indicator that they need to kick into high gear. If they're sitting around at 8:30 and there's 7 cards sitting up there and they've been sitting up there for a half hour, they know they're creating a problem.
They got to ramp it up.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily ramp it up, but doesn't it give them an opportunity to kind of even stack in their own mind the workload? And
sure.
It's almost an anticipatory thing.
A technician is always looking forward to what's next. Mm-hmm. All right, I know I've got this job right now, but what's coming down the pipe? They always are looking forward to that. And if they see 4 cars coming down the pipe, they're gonna gobble them up. They're gonna go through them faster than if they don't see anything coming at all. If they don't know what's coming next, or there's nothing coming next, a technician is likely to kind of take his time and kind of go along, and he's not going to kill himself, busting his butt on a car when there's nothing coming down the pipe. You can create a whole. You combine that with communication issues with the office, and you can create a whole disconnect in workflow. So then, once the tech grabs the car keys, he moves the card down to in diagnosis. And that means the tech has the car in the shop. He's diagnosing, he's evaluating, he's filling out his checklist. He's taking pictures, getting everything ready, building a quote. Once he's done with that, it goes to the on hold.
But does he have a section on the board, or is it okay? There's
4 little boxes kind of stacked on top of each other, so it flows down from the top down, moves from incoming work to in diagnosis, and then to on hold. And on hold is a big bottleneck for us right now. We're trying to fix. On hold is the car is not ready to be worked yet. It's done being evaluated. The quote has been sent to the office, and it's waiting on a sale to happen so that we can get authorization, or it's waiting on parts to get here. You don't really know why it's on hold, and the techs don't really care why. They just know that that car isn't ready to be worked on yet. And then the magic happens in the shop when we make a sale. I said, all right, we're doing XYZ, the shocks, the brakes, and the oil change, and the gasket on that X5. The advisor comes out and triumphantly and moves the card from on hold down to ready for work. And it's always a good feeling hearing that click, and all the guys in the shop look over to see what he just sold.
But was that assigned to any one tech, or is that in a pool?
It goes to the ready for work section. And then we have a very unique setup in our shop where our guys dispatch the work to themselves. They, as a team, decide who is best suited to do that job, and they kind of dispatch themselves. So the advisor just puts it.
They're doing triage themselves.
They're triaging.
Okay.
Yep. Right. We work on a team plan here at our shop, and our guys are very equally matched. They're all A+ master techs, so they triage very well. They all get along very well together, so it works. It doesn't work in every shop that way, so I wouldn't expect everybody to want to do something like that, but it works in my shop. So they triage it, and they do move the card to whoever is being assigned. So after that, you'll see a stack of 3 names of 3 technicians, and you'll see the stack of work that they've got going. And the advisor will also indicate how much work he sold, and we'll add it all up. This board is not quite as live as I'd like it to be. We only really update it twice a day, once at noon and once at 4:55 at the end of the day. That's when we add up all the numbers and figure how much work is sold. So we're on lunchtime, and at the end of the day, that's when we chunk through the numbers and make sure it's all accurate.
I'm talking to Bud Houston, a technical product specialist with Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Hey, Bud, what's the best thing about the Guru on the Go van?
Yeah, I think that the best thing about the van and the kind of the mission is it's twofold. One is ultimately to bring brand awareness of the Federal Mogul portfolio, but I think the way that we do that is we bring value to the technician, the shop owner. And how we do that is we bring technical content, we bring some updated material, and once they see that I care about their operation, their reputation, and their qualifications, one, they're built up, but two, they really, at that point, listen to what I have to say about the brands, and the relationship is built on a mutual benefit.
So you bring technical stuff, and you bring product-specific
Yeah, me personally, I'm super technical background. So anytime I'm doing a lunch and learn or a van visit, training session, it's typically 90% technical, 10% product.
Any new Moog products that are getting good reviews?
Yeah, one that's recently released is the Dodge Ram 25 and 3500 complete steering assembly. It's inner and outer tie rod ends and drag link pre-assembled. This is the first aftermarket part that's available in a complete assembly for this application. And the specific applications, late model Dodge Rams, are actually a kind of a high failure part on the chassis parts.
What about the compression loaded ball joints with pre-installed integral dust boot?
Yeah, the integral dust boot has been a huge hit. Initially, the idea was well, where is the boot? And then once you kind of get around and show people, they're like, well, that is the best idea I've ever seen, because I've torn so many boots on installation, or I've had a boot that's not seated properly. And they're like, well, that's just not an issue now. And they love it.
Federal Mogul Motor Parts' Garage Gurus is your go-to source for the vehicle training, technology, and answers you need to keep your next job on track. On-site, online, or on demand, the Gurus are here to help keep your business and your career on the road to success. Visit fmgarageguru.com. So the production and the assignments are more critical in moving of those, if you will, tags, tickets, squares, panels, than the true numbers of the day. I mean, I guess they've probably come to rely on the shop's going to produce. If we do this much work, we're probably going to produce this kind of number.
If those cards are moving, then good things are happening.
Okay,
and so there's like an action side of the board, which is the dispatch section, which is the whole left side of the board. And the right side of the board is like our performance tracking. If you're in an airplane cockpit, the left side of the board is the yoke and the throttles and the rudders. That's how you steer the board. That's how you steer the shop. On the right-hand side is our altimeter and our attitude indicator and our speed, our airspeed. That's our performance indicators to tell us how we're doing at the end of the day and the end of the week and the end of the month. That's where we have all of our goals listed as well. What do we want to do today? What do we want to do this month? What do we want to do, all broken down. So
you're really setting a performance goal as far as a dollar number, and that doesn't change but daily.
This board we think of in terms of hours. Hours turns into dollars. So, the office in the front of our shop talks in terms of dollars. If you talk to a technician in terms of dollars, they understand what you're saying, but that's not their language. Technicians want to know how many hours per ticket. How many hours did you sell on this car? So we try to keep it simple and think of terms of hours on the board. We do have a whole different system for like tracking dollars, but we know that dollars follow the hours. So we put this board in the technician's language.
You were talking about you had some holes in the board. Obviously, you've been working this for what, a year now?
This has been going on only for a couple months. This has been going on for about 5 or 6 months.
Okay. Everything has a different version, What iteration are you in?
We're on version like 1.3. The first version was very rough. We just lined it with dry erase marker. Version 1.2, we finally locked in like how we wanted it to look, and we bought striping tape. It's like black, very thin striping tape.
Oh, yeah.
And we striped the whole thing so that you wouldn't erase the lines anytime you erased things. That's 1.2. I think board 2.0 will be digital. Will be a system where the advisors won't have to leave their chair and come out into the shop to actually see it.
An 8-foot by 4-foot digital board. That's going to cost $10,000.
I don't care. It'll be worth it. It'll be
the
worth
Jumbotron at Bimmer Rescue.
It might not need to be so big if it was digital. But
you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, right. How big is the scoreboard at like a football stadium? It's gigantic. Why? So everyone can see it.
Have you seen those beautiful convex 4K displays today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all you need. But you need a touch screen. You're right. That would be expensive. But even if you pay a couple of grand for something like that, now you've got the display and you can write code. You could write code to make it work.
As long as my guys don't figure out how to watch TV on it, we'll be just fine.
Well, that'll have to be part of the software.
Exactly. So fantastic.
No, don't hook the cable.
But yeah, right away we discovered this board helps solve some problems. Like we call them. The term is there's a hole in the board.
Okay.
If there's a hole in the board, that means that there's a bottleneck. Something is holding up the flow of the program. The biggest one we found was just cars on hold. Our shop is a German repair shop. We're extremely thorough in our inspection of cars, and we find everything on these cars. We have a very in-depth inspection process, which earns us a roughly 5 hour per ticket, 5 hours per ticket sold on each car. But it also takes a long time. The advisors it takes a long time to build tickets in my shop, and that's kind of become a hang-up. And this kind of exposed it to me a little bit, and exposed it to us that, hey, we really might have an issue here. We might be able to trim some corners of this process. It made me ask myself, are we really gaining from this big, giant process that we've created? Is there any way we can streamline certain parts of it without compromising, safety to the customer, finding the safety issues on the car, without compromising any of our values? Can we trim this inspection process down? So we've already started looking into things to do that. Would you just need to add a service writer? I don't think so. I think we've got some software limitations with our software right now. Our canned jobs, like canned jobs meaning, a valve cover gasket for a 6-cylinder BMW, are very difficult to create. There's got to be a better way that we can create canned jobs that we're not constantly looking up the same parts over and over. Those are the avenues that we're going down right now. It's great to hear you say that. It exposed some weaknesses inside the system, no matter where they are. If it's, systems, if it's processes, if it's people. Bandwidth of people. Absolutely. The big, huge theme here was we discovered very quickly with this board that we needed to close our communication loop. We needed much more fluid communication between the office and between the back of the shop. There was these big disconnects happening in very crucial phases of our process that were leading to problems. So I want to hear at the end of the day, at noon and at 4:55, a discussion happening in my shop between the office and the shop. At noon, it's, hey, what's the status on this quote? Have you sold it yet? I'm waiting on parts for this and that. But also, we're only down to 15 hours remaining between the three of us of our buffer. So we're going to be in about 2 or 3 hours. Our techs are going to be out of work. So, come up with something. We need more work sold right now. Kick it into high gear. Do we need to put somebody else in the office picking parts while you're looking up, labor? What do we need to do to focus all of our hands on that problem? There's an interesting analogy my business coach Cecil always points out. There's a Toyota plant in California that was revolutionary in that they created a process on their assembly line that if anything went wrong or anything wasn't working right, they would stop the entire assembly line and focus every single bit of energy to solving that problem. And we're trying to think like that in my shop. If there's if my advisors are backed up on 4 quotes and it's taking them a long time and the techs are starting to run out of work, why not have a tech come and help with some of the parts searching or pull me off of whatever administrative duties I'm doing that are important, but not as important as getting those quotes done. Pull me off the quotes, off that, and have me help as well. What can we do to stop the bottleneck and keep the flow going in the shop? I think it exposes, like you say, opportunities, fixes, changes. Parts ordering, I find it interesting. Are you doing a lot of e-com? I mean, were you just basically clicking and ordering, or are you on the phone too much? Yeah, we use WorldPack Speed Dial joined with RO Writer. So there is parts integration. We're clicking, we're loading, and we do have to do a fair amount of phone calls as well. Thankfully, we've got one guy in the office who came from the parts department at BMW. So he's a wizard with the parts. He can figure this stuff out. And that's the time when I'll see the advisors kind of start splitting tasks. Kyle will start building estimates while Mike is selling. That kind of stuff's really helped. What is the biggest bottleneck that, if you had to pick out of 1, 2, or 3 that's slowing you down? The biggest one is just building the estimates, finding the parts, communicating with the customers and making the sale. It's taking too long in our shop. And we have all the tools. We're text messaging type of shop. We're sending bolt-on digital inspection reports out. But it's just, since we're so keen on inspecting, an average BMW that rolls into my shop, it's got 110,000 miles on it. We're going to find, $6,000 worth of work at least, or, average $3-4,000 worth of work on that car. And we're going to sell half of it, so it takes a long time to build up those quotes, especially when we get a weird mix of cars. Like, this has also revealed another problem: scheduling has become a much more dynamic thing in our shop. It used to be, we tried to get 6-7 cars on a Monday, 6 cars on a Tuesday, 5 on a Wednesday, and so on and so on. But now we've really had to look much harder at what cars we're taking in, and if we take in 6 old cars on a Monday, or 7 old cars on a Monday, that we're going to find tons and tons of work on, it's just going to basically it's going to bring the office to a screeching halt. It's going to bring the shop to a screeching halt, because they take so long to quote out work on those older cars. So we need to find a better mix. We need to find 1 old car, 2 2008s, 3 2012s. We have to really start looking at that.
A good problem to have.
Right, exactly. So it's made it all more challenging to figure out. It's more work now to figure that stuff out, but it's great.
Oh, wow. Great stuff. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing all of this. You talked to me about a feedback loop.
This is interesting. And I'm talking to a lot of car people out there, so I'm going to make some car analogies, but I'm going to get into some kind of nerdy stuff with this.
I love it. Bring on the nerds.
So a feedback loop, there's this interesting little gizmo out there. It's been around since the 20s. It's called a PID controller. This is nerdy stuff.
All right.
A PID controller, it sounds fancy, but they're all over our world. The most common one I can think of is cruise control in your car. Cruise control has a PID controller built into it. Basically, as you're going down the road at 60 miles an hour, you engage your cruise control. There's a little circuit that is computing what to do. And it's got a throttle actuator, so it's deciding how much to open and close your throttle. And PID, the first letter is proportion. Proportion makes the initial change. So like, you start to go up a hill, and now the car is going 55 miles an hour. Proportion of the PID knows to add 25% more throttle, and then see what happens. The I stands for integral. This is really nerdy stuff, so sorry if I'm going over the top here.
No, do it.
The integral, so the P makes the change. The integral adds more change if the initial change didn't do the trick. So if the car continues to slow down, the integral will add more change. Depending on the car, how much more, it'll decide how much more. And then the D is the derivative. The derivative kind of learns how the car is reacting to this change and makes this whole process smooth. So let me bring it back to planet Earth here.
We're ready.
P makes the change.
Yeah.
Integral tunes the change, and derivative makes it smooth. And I'm trying to pull this all together and show that this is a really common process, this PID thing. Big companies use this in process management and in managing assembly lines. It's in your car. This little stuff is in all kinds of little devices. Your thermostat in your home does this to prevent your air conditioning from overshooting, from cooling down your house too much below the set point and then having to wait for it to come back up. This stuff is everywhere, and we need to start putting it into our shops as well. I want my shop, when there's a problem, to make a change. When we don't have enough cars, I want the guys to initially book 2 more to try to make up for it. And then kind of tune it. If that was too much last time, do 1 less the next time. I want them to constantly be thinking about like what's coming next, what's tomorrow, what is the perfect day going to look like, and constantly striving to determine what that is. That's what I want, our guys to be doing in our shop.
Well, once you take the scoreboard or the board and computerize it, and
Absolutely.
and it can start learning from everything its throughput, if you will, you may be able to write code, no doubt. And yes, in the world of AI, you can absolutely learn and then almost, if you will, have a barometer or two that says more, less, green, blue, yellow, and it could start giving outputs and or inputs. I'm not sure how that would work to your team, the entire team.
Ideally, I think that trying to figure out the perfect schedule, flow, all that stuff is something that human brains don't really need to be doing. We could find a way to get like computers to do some of this work for us, or at least give us the outputs that we need to measure. It's the same as an oxygen sensor in a car. Modern car goes down the road. It's got what's called a closed loop fuel injection system. There are a couple inputs, temperature, throttle position, air mass, and oxygen level in the exhaust is sort of a correction. If the car is running too rich going down the highway, the oxygen sensor will sense it and affect the input. So the output, which is the exhaust gas, will affect the input. And that's sort of what we're trying to do in our shop. I've turned the scheduler on in the back computer. There's a computer right next to this board so that we can populate all the numbers from it. The technicians see the schedule. I let my tech see what the schedule is for tomorrow. So every day at 4:55 or at usually around noon, they'll say, "Hey, we're running short. We can take one more car tomorrow." So I'm letting the output of our shop almost dictate what the input is, so they can control, they can communicate with the office and say, "Hey, we're going to come up short.
Mm-hmm.
We're headed towards a hole in the board, you guys. Why don't you call somebody from next week and tell them that someone canceled and they can come in tomorrow?" And we do that, and it works.
You're not only heading to a hole in the board, but you could be heading to a bottleneck in the board, too.
Absolutely. Don't call one of those old cars in. Call a 2012 BMW.
Yeah, let's get a 2012. We would love the work. We want to keep our guys busy, but we don't want to bury ourselves.
We know it's going to be a pretty easy, quick ticket. That guy just wanted a brake flush and an oil service in a state. So it'll be a couple-hour ticket, and we want that.
And based on what we're doing on Thursday, it has this feel or this tone to it. We could use an older car on that day.
Absolutely. Hey, we want an old car this Friday. We want this is cool too. This has all started a thing with the weekend, because we're a 5-day, 8 to 5 type of shop. We don't work on the weekends. I'm very passionate about that. But it's changed we stopped looking week to week almost. We used to not take in cars on Fridays because Fridays were our finish up day, but it's almost become the opposite. We want cars coming in on Friday so that we can populate the board with work sold and work that's available to be done on Monday. So that on Monday, when the guys come in, they can churn through all the evaluations on Monday morning and then roll right into work that we sold on Friday and the parts showed up Monday morning. We're trying to almost shift the weeks around and make it so it's not a Monday through Friday thing, but a more continuous process.
So your customers accept car in Friday, they get it Monday?
Well, it's easy because we've got 7 loaner cars. Uh-huh. So we just call people that maybe, call the Friday appointments and say, "Hey, our diagnostic team would like to start first thing on Monday on your car. Would you like to drop off now?" And then we'll just put you in our loaner now. Ideally coming up on a weekend, if I look out in my parking lot and I see 4 or 5 loaners out there, I'm upset. I want those loaners in customers' hands, and I want their cars in my shop so we can get started on them.
So have you hired a coder yet to write this code?
No, I don't. That's a little bit over my my head. I'll have to figure that out. And ideally, I would love for one of the software suppliers that I use already, maybe Bolt-On or somebody, to hear this and take that seriously and maybe start integrating it. I'd rather share it and have somebody else create it better than I ever could.
I get it. Collaborate, bring a lot of minds together. And so if someone's listening to this, Patrick has a heck of an idea.
That's right. Come on over.
And really, the exciting part of what you're saying is that it's going to involve some artificial intelligence. I mean,
sure.
some machine learning language. I mean, writing conditions inside of this, and every shop could be different. You could have a lot of different switches in there that determine the kind of, maybe the competencies of your people, the hours you're open, the days of the week you're open, the throughput that you're looking for, and maybe an ARO, and all of those really interesting things that gives you answers And then your people have to learn how to react to them. And then as they move those tiles, like you're saying, the board takes on a completely different complexion at all times. And you've got these, these barometers. Okay, I've landed.
Exactly. And we can use the plane again. No, I want, ideally, I want to get some of the numbers off the board too. When I was in airline training, my company is kind of a little old-fashioned, and they made us memorize all kinds of numbers about how the plane worked. What was the maximum brake temperature you could take off with? I had to memorize that. But then you look in the cockpit of the plane, and there was no number readout for that actual number. It was just red, yellow, green, and we couldn't take off until we were in the yellow. I would love for this system to have dials, gauges, bar graphs, things that are, I'm a very visual person, and a lot of us technician type people who work with our hands are very visual people as well. You put a big spreadsheet up there and a lot of people's eyes just kind of glass over. I would love to see, just like the instrument cluster in a car, a speedometer, where are the bottlenecks, some little thing that indicates that we're having a squeeze or we're having a problem, little timers that count down on each ticket. I would love that. Each ticket that moves through the system has a little timer that starts to count, so you can see how long the car has been in its little square.
But don't most workflow systems that are out there have that right now?
Some still, yeah. Like I said, there are plenty of systems that have stuff like this, but nobody has it like all integrated and in visual in the shop, stuff like that.
Let me go back to the beginning of the episode, and in episode 266 you came on and told a story about your tech sitting down with you and says, "Hey boss, I want to make some more money," and it's a great segment of that interview. Please go listen to it. Is the tech making more money?
Making more money.
Good.
We're not like busting the doors down yet, but it has created a noticeable change. The guys are taking home a little bit more money from it, and it's also changed the tone in our shop a lot. The culture a little bit. We've talked about culture together a lot. Those different numbers mean different things to different people. So like the techs, when they see a nice fat cushion of work that's sold and parts are here, they are going to be calmer techs because they know there's plenty of work coming down the pipe, and when that starts inching back and there's less work available, they're going to start to communicate with the office better. They're going to start talking with them. Hey, what do we need to do? Can I help out? It's changed things quite a bit around here. It's all positive. Nothing bad has come from this board. And the cool thing too is that everybody's put a little piece into it in our shop. One of my guys, D, he's a pretty quiet guy. When D says something, usually it's good though. But it's easy for me to kind of forget to talk with D about it because he's very quiet. He's very dedicated to his work. But he's taken over the task of adding up these numbers every week, and he's very diligent. He's very methodical guy, and he's done a spectacular job at that. He's given me the accurate numbers I need, to make the calculations and populate the board. So it's become very collaborative, which I like.
Great story, love it. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you,
Patrick McHugh,
absolutely.
Bimmer Rescue, Richmond, Virginia. Very insightful, Patrick. Thanks so much for being on.
Well, thank you, Carm. This stuff's so important, and it's so cool to have somebody who's such a good interviewer out there in the industry doing this stuff. I mean, it's just great. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, Patrick McHugh, for contributing to all aftermarket professionals who are looking to improve their workflow systems. Thanks for sharing your scoreboard strategy and for your contributions to help all ships rise. The key talking points can be found at remarkableresults.biz/E369. Hey, please don't forget to check out the photos page on the website. Recent editions from ASTE are now posted. And don't forget, write me. Love to hear from you. Carm at remarkableresults.biz. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.